Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk today about the Shadow Systems CR920. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, Shadow Systems was basically a performance Glock, right? So it uses the same internals, same design, same mechanics, but they just made the ergonomics a little bit better. They added things like their patented little optic cut thing in here. They do better sights. They go ahead and do all the slide milling and everything. So it's just a performance Glock, but it's not built by Glock. It's built by Shadow Systems. And so there's a lot of people that I see that say that these things are pieces of shit, and then the Shadow Systems guys swear by them and they seem to love them. So let me give you my 2 cents. This is a 40,000 round review, right? So we put 40,000 rounds through this gun, and so I'm going to go over what broke on it, what reliability issues we've had, and how Shadow Systems has addressed those. Okay, so we're going to get to reliability last on here, right? Because reliability is Glock's gold standard, and so we're going to touch that one last on this list. So let's just talk about the ergonomics of it, right? It is far superior ergonomically to a Glock. It just is. You Glock guys, I was a Glock guy for years. I'm still a Glock guy, but it is superior to the Glock in the ergonomics. The replaceable backstrap allows you to adjust the grip either more towards a 1911 grip angle or more towards a Glock grip angle, and it actually does change the profile of the pistol grip, so you can add that Glock comp in there if you want. I choose the 1911 one because I shoot a 2011 generally, and I just find that it points better for me. Okay, so a couple things that Shadow System really does well. Now, first off, let's talk about the price difference. Factory Glock right now, runs about 550 bucks. For the combat version of this, they're about $700 to $800, and then for the elite version, which is what this one is with the optic cut in there, it's around 1,100 bucks out the door. Here's the thing about it: you have less to do. So let's just say you get a Glock. You get a Glock for 550 bucks. A lot of people will send their Glocks. Now, if you're shooting factory Glocks that are just bone stock and you don't do anything but punch new sights in there, this doesn't necessarily apply. But let's talk about some of the other people that have a tendency of customizing their guns. So if you're going to customize your gun and do all this slide cutting and put optic cuts on there, you're far, far better getting the Shadow Systems because you're going to spend less money. Now, here's the other thing: is their patented system works a hell of a lot better than Glock's MOS system. MOS is with plates. Guys, the last class I ran, every MOS plate, the last police officer, patrol officer class we ran, every MOS plate had an issue. Either it came loose and we had to tighten it down, or it broke. We had, one of them broke the screw completely off the MOS plate and just sheared off, and he wasn't racking off of his optic. It just was the force of it coming back. MOS plates are an option. They're certainly not the best option, right? So now I got it. There's going to be some idiots out there that say that they've had theirs forever and never had a problem with it. Most of you guys don't shoot worth a shit anyways, and most of you guys don't ever put any rounds down in range, so your opinion is kind of moot. Seriously, I mean, we got guys that argue with me all the time on this YouTube channel, and they'll get down in the comments, and it's like, dude, I put more rounds down range in a month than you will do in 10 years. Don't even talk to me, because most of these guys are not shooters. They're gun guys that think they know everything. So just when you see them in the comments, ignore them. Here's a simple fact: you're going to spend less money on this than you will on a Glock if you're going to do those customizations. And if you're going to run an optic on here, the MOS plate is an option, but the Shadow Systems optic cut, their patented optic cut with the spacers and everything, so you can do it on lots of different types of optics. It works really well. They do change one thing: the spring on the actual what do you call it? The extractor. The spring that tensions down the extractor, it's a little bit different on this model than on the combat model because it has to work around their little patented design. So that is one part that's not interchangeable with Glocks, and that works really well. Now, I will also show you that a couple things that Shadow System does not do well. One thing that they don't do well is they haven't done the Gen 5 Glocks, right, to where they actually come out with an ambidextrous safety on these, at least to my knowledge yet. This one is not, and I don't think any others are. I think they're all still based on Gen 4 Glocks. Why they don't add that ambidextrous, I'm sorry, I said safety, I meant slide release. Why they don't add that ambidextrous slide release on there is beyond me, because it would be really nice for left-handed people to be able to have that option, and it's a super easy thing to put in there. And the way that the gun is designed, I haven't seen any aftermarket support that actually allows you to do anything with that. The other thing is too, is that one of the big hiccups that gun guys hate about Glocks is how small the slide release is. And Shadow Systems should just come from the factory. They actually make theirs even like more dinky than the Glock one. I don't know why they don't make a bigger one, that like these extended ones here, or even something like what the SIG 320s use, that has a big button, big lever to get down on there. So my wife, she uses a SIG 320 because it's so easy for her to get her thumb on there and actually get that lever down. So anyways, so those are a couple things that Glock has done that make the gun a little bit better or that make the gun a little bit worse, depending on which one you're talking about. One thing too that they've changed out on these is they use a fluted barrel. The idea that they have in the fluted barrel is that if dirt and grit get in there, it would actually push it out. I don't know if it works or if it's a gimmick. I haven't seen. I don't throw my guns in mud pits to test them. The recoil, spring, and everything all seem to be about the same as Glocks. I haven't noticed any huge difference. Now, there is one big defect with their design that I'll go over here in just a minute. But as far as sights go, they do use much better quality sights than Glock does factory. So you actually get good combat sights. You get a blacked out rear with a tritium front sight. So you actually have really good combat sights on there. You don't have to swap them out. I don't on any of mine. I like the Shadow Systems sights because that's generally what I would swap it out to anyways, is something exactly like that, a tritium front with a blacked out rear. Now, they use their own magwell design because of their replaceable back straps, and so their magwell design is a little bit different, so you can't use Glock flared magwells and stuff on them, which does suck for us competition guys that like to add those in there because it makes mag reloads a little bit quicker, but they do go ahead and flare the magwell anyway, so it's not that much of a help. It comes with a flared magwell. The flared magwell that it comes with is a cheap piece of shit that breaks, and it just feels flimsy and cheap, so if somebody in the aftermarket community could make a nice aluminum one, we'd all thank you. Now, as far as the trigger, is the trigger better than a Glock's? Not really. And I'm not a trigger snob, so it doesn't mean that much to me. But the simple fact is the nicer the trigger, the better you're going to shoot the gun. It's just, guys, it's just a fact. And everybody's going to say, well, I shoot my Glock just fine. Yeah, you shoot your Glock just fine. But no matter how well you can shoot that Glock, you'll tighten the groups with a 2011 that has a better trigger. Will you tighten the groups in a negligible way, or will you tighten the groups in a way that that actually affects the difference of what's going on downrange? And what I guess let me rephrase that a little bit because that kind of came out awkward. When you shoot a gun, right, like a Glock, and let's say that gun gives you a 3-inch group, and you shoot a 2011, you get a 2.5-inch group. Well, the 2011. Everything else being equal, right? The 2011, you get a better group on because the trigger's better. But that half-inch difference, does that make any negligible difference at 30 yards? No, not really. So that's my point, is that yes, as a general rule, people will shoot better and they'll tighten up their groups with better triggers, but it may be negligible how much, especially for a defensive handgun or even a competition handgun. It doesn't really make enough difference. So unless you're shooting bullseye competitions. Okay, as far as reliability, what issues have we had with this? So Shadow Systems has had some reliability issues, and I'll be the first to admit that they have had their share of them. You go onto the Shadow Systems forums, they have reliability issues. Shadow Systems has also been very good on the quality control side about honoring those and fixing those and having great customer service. That's really what matters to me. If you have very few reliability issues, but you don't honor your customer service, versus you have more reliability issues, but you honor your customer service, yeah, this one is kind of the one I tend to lean towards, because I like companies that will honor their customer service and fix the issue when I have it versus ones that I have to fight. Now, so Shadow Systems does do a good job with that. You just tell them, email them, send them the issue, send the gun back to them or whatever if they need it. But they've next day aired me a part. We thought it was actually, I was getting light primer strikes. And I'll explain why in a little bit, but I was getting light primer strikes. And Shadow Systems thought it was the firing pin in the spring. They next day aired me a new firing pin in the spring. Turns out that wasn't it, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. So lastly, let's talk about the reliability of this. Is this as reliable as a Glock? Well, you know, it really is. But there's some caveats. Let me talk about it. Have I had any more issues out of these than I have with my Glocks? No. Out of 40,000 rounds, I've had about the same amount of issues with these as I had with my Glock. Truth is, I've had less issues with my 2011, as much as you guys want to hate on 2011s, than I ever do with any of my other guns. So my 2011 is by far my most reliable gun. But it's also a lot more expensive, is what it is. Okay, so let's discuss the reliability issues of this versus the Glock. They use a lighter firing pin spring. that makes a huge difference because they use it looks like they're using, I think, about a 5-pound spring, and Glock uses a 5.5-pound spring. And I swapped out all my guns, including my Glocks, to a 6-pound spring because I was getting light primer strikes on these, and I actually got a few on my Glocks as well. So I swapped all my guns out to a 6-pound spring. Now that has to do with the primer manufacturing. As these companies have tried to get caught up, they have had supply shortages and they've had to change the way that they do things, and so we're getting harder primers to ignite. And if you use like a hammer fire, like a 2011, it's not really an issue, but certainly becomes a little bit more of an issue with a gun that's using a striker fired gun. We had a bunch of issues out of a Mandolin 320 again until we changed out the firing pin spring. Now it's good. It runs rock solid. So so it is one of those things that you have to really think about. That like, hey, firing pin springs, I would probably go ahead and change it out. So when I bought my gun, I would buy a new firing pin spring. No. Here's the issue with the Shadow Systems. Shadow Systems QA is not doing a good job, and it hasn't done a good job since, as far as I understand it, since the beginning. Shadow Systems QA has not done a good job of making sure that these guns come off the factory with no defects. And let me just tell you a few of the issues that I had. Okay, so we mostly had guns that were tight and crisp. There's a little bit of rattle in there. But part of that's probably wear too, but it's no more than, again, that's what's on my Glock. But one of the issues that I thought was really interesting about this is that if you go to disassemble this gun, so let me try to do this now while I'm talking to you. If you go to disassemble this gun, it's funny. So this one, see, it hangs up in there. I have to mess with it a little bit to get it off. So sometimes I can get it off, sometimes I can't. And again, that's just something, there we go, so it comes off that time. Okay, so that's just something being out of tolerance on there and allowing it to hang up in there. And it's not really a big deal, but it just shows me that there's a little bit lost in the QA that I've never had a problem with on a Glock. I've never had a Glock that, you know, you just hold it back, pull the pins down and squeeze the trigger and the slide falls off. Now, this has gotten better as the gun got worn in, but I shouldn't have to wear this gun down 15,000 rounds to be able to take the damn slide off. So, so that was one issue that we had with this. We did not have that with the mandolins, but their QA, if you go to the Shadow Systems forums, they have a lot more problems with the guns coming from the factory. Now, the Shadow Systems have been great about fixing that, but if you want to build a reputation on reliability, you need to get off your ass and fix this QA issue. And you need to make sure that the guns that people get are quality assured and are reliable. Yeah, you can have a few bad apples, but you can't have that many. So would I buy one of these guns again? Yes, I would. I really like it. It's been just as reliable from a general standpoint as my Glocks. But I would certainly run it through 1,500 rounds of good ammo and make sure that it's reliable before I started carrying it, and I would make sure that I push on Shadow Systems that if I have any issues, I want you guys to fix this. This is bullshit that we have guns that have this many QA issues. Shadow Systems needs to spend some money on their QA and get that figured out. So it has been a really good gun in that sense, in the sense that it's a reliable gun. Shadow Systems needs to work on their QA. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. That's my 40,000 round review, right? So this has been a great gun for 40,000 rounds. It has performed really well. It had its finicky things. We had to work some things out. It is certainly not the performer that like my 2011 is, but it's a third the price too. It is more expensive than the Glock, but you do get some of the upgrades that you normally want on the Glock. You get some of that stuff done for you. So would I buy another Shadow Systems? Simple yes. Would I buy it over a standard Glock? Probably, because the ergonomics are that much better. But if I was going, and if I was going to war, and everybody wants to throw that out there, if you're going to have one gun for the end of the world, would you choose the Shadow Systems or the Glock? Well, I would choose the Shadow Systems if I got to test it all first and make sure that it worked okay and had customer service to deal with beforehand, which is what you're in right now. If I just had to grab a gun off of a shelf and go to battle with it, and I didn't ever get to shoot that gun before, yeah, it'd be a Glock 19. Why wouldn't you? I mean, you know that gun's going to run. So, and the other guns have to be tested, but Glock makes sure that their guns always run, and Shadow Systems isn't. Is this Shadow Systems? Are they having any more QA issues than say Sig Sauer or M&P or Smith & Wesson did with the M&P line? Actually, probably not. But the simple fact is that they are competing directly with Glock without the marketing platform of Smith & Wesson or SIG, but they're competing directly with Glock even in their own platform, which means people have an expectation of reliability with it. So guys, I'm going to leave y'all with that. I really appreciate y'all watching. Make sure and like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and we will catch y'all later.